After listening to the first 9 Wired Series podcast, we have come to a point in your journey where I am hoping you have been able to pinpoint some of your dominant character traits, the traits that affect your daily thoughts and behaviors. As I've stated before, these traits are directly linked to how you communicate, perceive, and relate. Identifying your dominant character traits can also provide you with a sense of empowerment and clarity. For example, it allowed me to connect the dots as to why I have always struggled with anxiety. Sadly, I can never remember a time where worry wasn't a part of my life. Even as a little kid, I was so good at it that my mom told me she never had to worry because I did all the worrying for her. I'm pretty sure she wasn't expressing her gratitude or giving me a compliment. School dominated most of my concerns. On a daily basis, I worried that I would forget to complete homework assignments or do poorly on a test. I worried all throughout the day that a teacher would give a pop quiz that would destroy my ability to earn an A in the class. I worried that I would fail and make a complete fool out of myself. Middle school for most people is just plain brutal, which is exactly how I remember it. My best friend since preschool ditched me right before entering 7th grade and started hanging out with all the popular kids. I began to worry where I fit in and if anyone else really liked me. I'm not quite sure how, but I ended up with a small group of misfit friends, which did not improve my self-esteem. High school was slightly better, but I'd worry every morning about who I would sit with at lunch. There were only about 150 kids in my entire class, most of whom attended the school system since kindergarten. Don't get me wrong, I got along with just about everyone. It was just that I never felt like I truly belonged to any one specific group, and it didn't help that my high school was very cliquish. The kids I actually enjoyed being around sat with my ex-best friend and her new BFF, so I didn't dare join their table. After-school functions were just as gut-wrenching. My mom insisted that I attend the annual Christmas dances and senior prom, even though I had absolutely no interest in going. She stated that I would regret it later in life, and to this day, I believe she was dead wrong. I should mention that I had to ask out each one of my dates, as no one seemed to be standing in line for me. Talk about humiliating and embarrassing, although I proudly admit that every one of my dates was attractive. I have high standards, after all. In the end, I never really wanted to hang out with the snobby popular kids, but I envied their social life and desperately worried that I would be alone the rest of mine. 4 years of college proved to be another chapter of worry in my story. I never gave myself a break from feeling anxious. I would worry during class and after class, as I fell asleep at night and when I woke up in the morning, during the weekends, over Christmas and spring breaks, and all throughout the summer. Worrying was what I did. It was how I identified myself. People would say things like, "You worry too much. Stop worrying. You need help." That advice was not helpful and only made me feel more anxious. I didn't know how not to worry. I would even worry that if I didn't worry, something bad would happen. It was a vicious cycle, and that seemed to control every aspect of my life. By my mid-30s, my body was waving the white flag. It had carried the stress of my anxiety for far too long and decided to act out. Among other obvious signs, an ever-present knot settled deep in my throat. In that moment, I knew I had to find a way to conquer worry before it completely destroyed my health. And so the journey to freedom began, which I address in my podcast titled Defeating Anxiety. At the age of 40, my husband asked me if anyone could have said or done anything that would have stopped me from worrying. Honestly, I have no idea. But I have a sneaking suspicion that it would have really helped me manage my anxiety if I knew why I worried so much. Maybe, just maybe, it would have made all the difference, and I wouldn't have robbed myself of so much peace and joy. This is why I am so passionate to share the world of temperaments with you. During my quest to discover how I'm naturally wired, I was finally able to connect the dots to why I worry so much. 3 of my dominant character traits are: number 1, I am always thinking of the worst case scenarios. Number 2, I feel immense stress when I cannot control my environment. And number 3, I fear both the unknown and making wrong decisions. Being aware of these dominant traits have not only been eye-opening, but life-changing. In the past, my anxiety would put me in a death spiral, overwhelming me mentally, emotionally, and physically. But today, if I start to worry about something, I can easily identify the reason behind it and find a healthy path forward. Now I am in charge of my mindset. If I cannot control a situation or an outcome, I surrender my thoughts, praying and hoping for the best. Granted, it's not an easy task because I am so hardwired to be anxious. But it's a daily and sometimes hourly decision to choose a different approach to how I would naturally think and behave. I am no longer a slave to worry, which has thankfully improved my overall well-being and state of mind. For you, it might not be anxiety, but we all struggle with something, which is one reason why it's so beneficial to acknowledge how we are naturally wired. Connecting our traits to our thoughts and behavior equips us to better manage the way we relate and communicate. Our dominant traits can lead us to our greatest strengths and our greatest weaknesses. So it is my hope that you are able to start connecting your dots to achieve a better mindset and a healthier you. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel to stay up to date on my latest podcast. And hey, thanks for listening.